Hey writers, it's Megan Barnhart. I'm coming at you live from my Facebook page, Write with Megan. Give me a shout out if you're here live. I'd love to see who's online and hear what you are working on. I'm going to share us up so that we will also come at you live from the Write with Megan Facebook group. If you're not already a member, come on, join us. This is a space for writers to hang out, writers of all shapes and sizes. You can, get writing tips, connect with other writers, get unstuck if you're feeling stuck on your project, and even get some writing prompts and grammar tips. So I will get us shared up there, and I hope you will join us. All right. How's everybody's writing going this week? Are you sticking with your goals? Are you having success? Um, I'm doing an August challenge on 750 words, and I'm absolutely loving it. Thank you again, Lori Jean, for turning me on to that. And the challenge is just to write every single day in August, and the minimum is 750 words. And they just kind of fly by. And I've been using this time to work on the draft of Recipe for Drafting. It's so funny to be like drafting a drafting book and having all these thoughts about drafting a book and following or not following my own advice. It's very meta. But yeah, I'm really digging it. So if you're looking for a writing boost, I highly recommend it. They do monthly challenges. It's just a great community. So check it out. Yeah, Lori has your challenge going. Nailing it. Love it. Hey, Sarah. Sarah has written 48,000 words on her book so far. Awesome. Congratulations. All right. Well, that's a perfect time to think about the topic for today then, because you're on your way toward being finished and revising. So today I'm going to share with you the number one thing you need to do to successfully revise. And it's number one in terms of importance, and it's also number one in terms of chronology, like do this first. This tip works whether you're working on revising an entire book or you're working on revising something shorter. Maybe you're working on a blog post, or you are writing copy for your website, or you've written a speech or an article. Anything you're working on that you need to revise, this number one tip is going to save you from the heartache that revising can be. Okay. Lori's making a request for a class in story structure and deconstructing various books. Yeah, let's do that. It's a date. Lori, put in the comments if there's a particular book that you'd like deconstructed, and if I've read it, I'll be happy to do it. But otherwise, I'll deconstruct some of my favorite books. Yes, totally. And we'll do that. Yeah, we'll figure that out. Okay, so here it is. Let's just jump in. I'm going to give you that number one thing you need to do to successfully revise, and then I'll walk you through a little bit of the why. Okay. The number one thing you need to do to successfully revise is, before you make any revisions, to read and annotate what you've written. That means you read through and you make notes. So whatever rocks your world, I love Google Docs. So I use the comment feature. So I go through and I'm making notes. My notes are a mix of, but you might print it out and do it by hand. Okay. My notes are a mix of questions to myself. Why would he do that? Does that make sense? Does this sound good here? Criticisms. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, replace that. Things I need to research more. Wait, was that the right word there? Or is that the right expression? Or, I write a lot of nonfiction books. So look up that worksheet and make sure I've included all of the pieces. If you're writing fiction, maybe it's, is that really how corset ties work in Victorian England or Victorian Boston? So you're asking yourself questions. You're making notes about what you don't like. You're making notes about what you would like to see done differently. You're, making notes about things you need to research. And it might sound like that's pretty tedious. Like, oh man, Megan, you're trying to turn me into my own editor. And yes, in a way, I am. And that is actually the first reason I recommend reading and annotating. Because revising is a place where a lot of writers actually stop writing. They get to this stage, they read back through their own work, and the overwhelming feeling is like, oh my God, who wrote this crap? You're like, this is terrible. This can't be saved. Let's just forget about it. Okay. So reading as if you were an editor is actually part of the mindset to keep you from just unraveling your entire work. Whether, again, it's a book or a blog post or an article, whatever you're writing, you don't want to just tear it to shreds. Think of that scene from the cartoon Cinderella, and her stepsisters get mad because the mice have like gone and borrowed the beads and the bows and the pearls and the ribbons and all the stuff, and they just tear her dress to shreds, and then she's left in rags again. You don't want to do that to your story. So if you read through kind of with the thought like, oh, I'm acting like my own editor, what you're going to do is put yourself in a mindset of constructive criticism. You're going to go, oh, that doesn't work, but think like, why? This doesn't work because just in the last chapter it was 95 degrees and now you're saying it's snowing. Okay, figure out the timeline. That's a really constructive comment. That's something that you can make happen. That's something you can take action on. So absolutely, that's part of my goal, to try to get you to think like an editor or a friend. You don't have to have the skills of a professional editor, but think that you're reading somebody else's work and detach yourself from it, make it not personal, and just go through and see what's not working, what doesn't make sense. You can leave yourself comments of stuff you like too. That's something I love doing for my writing clients, is putting notes in the margins like, I'm really digging this. And it's not just to boost your own ego, it's actually practical, because later on when you start making changes, you want to make sure that you keep those lines that are really speaking to you, that are really working for you. So that's a helpful comment, like, yes, this, and maybe it's going to help you further with your revising, because maybe you love that particular line of dialogue for a character. You're like, yes, this is totally how Jim would talk. And then later when you're revising other sections, you're going to use that as a guideline. So go ahead and make positive comments as well. Okay, so the first reason is because it's going to make you less critical. It's going to make you act more like a friend who's giving constructive criticism. Okay. The second reason it's really important that you read and annotate before you jump in and start to revise is that revising is going to lead you down rabbit holes. And it's going to happen anyway, probably, because revising is a very complicated process. If you're really good at project management, maybe you won't go down rabbit holes. I'm like okay at project management for myself. I'm really good at it for other people, but like only okay for myself. So I often find myself going down holes. But here's what happens if you just start revising. You're going to go in here and you're going to get really, really in depth, and it's going to start changing things over here, or it's going to take you off on a whole different path. And it'll be really hard to figure out like how to prioritize things. If you already have annotated, then you get to look at all the stuff there is to do, and it's a lot easier to prioritize. And I'm going to give you some tips about prioritizing your revising and actually how to start making revisions in another video. But it'll be way easier to take those steps if you've done your reading and your annotating, and it's going to prevent you from just kind of letting one task lead you to another. I don't know if anybody has this problem, but I'm like an associative house cleaner. So I will like start folding the laundry, and then I'll like go, oh, I'm just going to put this one, dishcloth away. And I'll go to put the dishcloth away and realize that there are dirty dishes, and then wash the dirty dishes, which makes me realize I haven't eaten lunch yet and I'm hungry. So then I go to eat lunch, and then that makes me realize that my cat hasn't had his outside time play yet, which I normally do after lunch. So and like 3 hours later, I come back and realize the dryer door is still open and I haven't folded the laundry. So if you have that kind of brain where like one task takes you to the next, yeah, reading, annotating is going to be super powerful. All right. The third key reason to read and annotate first is that there are different levels of revising. There's everything from the big story structure, order of events, or even maybe bigger than that, like, do I want to make some changes to my world? Is this setting working, or do I need to tweak things slightly? Like, those are really big global considerations that will impact every part of your story. And then there are all these layers, and until you get down to small details like, do I prefer this word or that word? And each of those layers of revising needs a different kind of approach, a different kind of thinking. It's easiest if you group similar tasks together and instead of trying to do different levels of revising all at the same time. And as I'll talk more about in the next revising video, you might end up doing more work than you need to if you don't plan and prioritize the levels of revising. So just as a quick example, you spend all this time on this passage getting just the perfect words and description you want, and then later realize you don't even need that scene because you're making a change to your plot structure. So frustrating. Okay. So, and again, all of these things, being less critical, not going down those rabbit holes, and not doing more work than you need to, by dividing and conquering, these are all going to hopefully prevent you from having that feeling that, again, a lot of writers get, which is that it's not worth revising. I've had people tell me they stopped writing their entire book because they got stuck in editing and it didn't feel worthwhile, and they were so overwhelmed by the changes it felt like they needed to make the story better, or to make the writing better, that they just kind of gave up. So if you're in the midst of revising right now and you're finding it very challenging, I encourage you to stop, read, and annotate. If you haven't yet gotten to the revising phase yet, just tuck this away as a note to yourself for later, that before you go in and make any changes, you want to annotate. And I'm saying, like, annotate before doing any revising, but that doesn't mean you have to necessarily read back through your entire book before you make any changes. You can absolutely break it up into sections. So do what works for you and your process. As always, I encourage you to find the process that works for you and for your unique thinking style. But however big the chunks are you take it in, whether it's chapter by chapter, part by part, or you do the whole book, before you start revising a part or a section, get in there and annotate. And yeah, I highly recommend Google Docs. Oh, sorry, Sarah asked, what does annotate mean? And this whole time I've been like, annotate, 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 annotate. Take notes just means take notes. So ask yourself questions, does that make sense? Is that how I want it to be? Make comments. What are your reactions? So again, those can be positive or negative, like, yeah, this is exactly how Jim would talk, or, oh, wow, I love that description, or, oh no, that doesn't sound like Jim's voice, and oh man, I'm really not seeing the diner the way I want to. This description has to be better. All right, so I welcome you to add in more questions. Sarah, thank you for that good question. So funny how, like the terms I use all the time, like, yeah, these are the terms, everybody. I live in my own brain, guys. It's just me having fun in here. So let me know if you have other questions about revising. And again, I will be making another revising video that will be kind of, once you have done that note taking and made those comments, how to approach the task so you can divide it up into smaller sections and make it work for you. All right, I'm not seeing, oh, hey, Carrie, nice to see you. Oh, and Sapphire's here and Danny's here, awesome. Lots of familiar faces. Let's see some new faces too. If you found this advice about revising helpful, please do go ahead and give it a like, give it a share with somebody you think could use some revising help. And if you're watching this as a recording, please still feel free, add in your questions. I'll come back through and look at the comments, and join us in the Write with Megan group so we can geek out more about writing. All right, I will see you all next time. Have a great rest of your day and happy writing!